Hello there and welcome to our very first an audience with our alumni for 2022. It's lovely to have you back with us on LinkedIn, YouTube or Facebook, wherever you're tuning in. I'm delighted to be joined this afternoon by the wonderful Lyle Hamilton. Hello, Lyle.
Hello, you all right?
Not too bad, thank you. How are you doing today?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Good, it's good to have you with us. And Lyle, an esteemed member of our alumni community, also a member of our alumni board, and also one of the board of directors at Young Enterprise, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. So, Lyle, I wonder if you can tell us, when did you actually take part in the company programme?
So I took part in the programme, it was back in 2019.
So our very last in-person finals.
We were in the Corn Exchange in Edinburgh.
Yes, I remember all your pictures of your team splattered all across our social medias because of the last in-person finals we've got of our teams taking part in the company programme.
It was a really good night, actually, a really good day.
Do you know, I vividly remember your trade stall design at the Scottish finals because it was something a little bit different, wasn't it? I wonder if you can tell everyone here what you guys decided to go for.
Yeah, well, we ended up bringing a sort of, we called it the belted bus. And it was this, I think we got dimensions of the space we were allowed to use, and we'd used every possible square meter that we could, and this massive, solid built wooden bus that we ended up having to bring up in this big truck thing.
And why was that? How did that relate to your business? Because why don't you tell, what was your actual business when you did the company programme?
So we wrote children's books. We wrote a book called Bonnie the Belty, which is where the Belted Galloway cow bus came from. And it was one of the girls in our team, Megan and Leonie, that wrote that. And then we sort of sold it. We went and sold it to the public. And that was where the inspiration for the bus came from.
And it was an incredibly popular product, I seem to recall, when you were doing the company programme.
Yeah, I think we did really well. I think at the end we sold about 2,500 copies, which was good.
Certainly quite impressive, that's for sure. And I wonder if you can tell us, Lyle, in your experience, now looking back, and it wasn't that long ago, 3 years since you took part, but it's been a busy 3 years since then. I think is fair to say, and maybe you can tell us a little bit more about kind of what you've done since then. But what would your biggest takeaway, do you think, be of your time on the company programme?
I think the biggest takeaway for me was that you need to have a really good team round about you. You're never always going to get on. There's always going to be those heated conversations, but actually make sure you've got the right people around about you is so important.
That's an incredibly diplomatic answer there, Lyle. Well done.
Thank you very much.
I wonder, thinking about that, some of those heated discussions, because obviously it's now the end of January here, 2022. We've got our teams just coming up towards their regional finals in just over 2 months' time. Some of this can be quite a stressful time for company programme students, where they've just finished Christmas trade fairs. They've got prelims looming. It's a busy time at school, and they're trying to think, how can we maximise our sales before we get to the finals? So there could perhaps be quite a lot of heated discussions, as you put it. How did you manage that? Because you were managing director for your company.
I think for us, we did a really good team where we quite often left. You left your friendships at the door. You did have, we did have some really difficult conversations sometimes. There was quite often a split in opinion. And I think the collective responsibility is probably what I come back to quite a lot. It's once a decision's made, everybody understood that was what the decision was. And that carries in everyday business. That probably was how we got through it.
And how important was your role as managing director then in kind of leading that collective responsibility?
Yeah, I mean, we did something really strange with Young Enterprise, where most teams go from having a big team to a small team. We went the other way. I think we started with 6 and ended up with 16, which was a really strange transition. And it was all because of all of those heated conversations we'd had. And it's like, okay, well, what if we have another opinion? What if we bring somebody else in to help with that? So a lot of my job was about bringing people together, bringing different people in, making sure that we were all going in the same direction. But we had to grow as opposed to get smaller, which was a really, really strange.
I think the trajectory of your business was really interesting, wasn't it? Because when you did grow, and that was really due to scale as well, and trying to scale up your operations. But one thing I think is really interesting, that I always love talking to you about, after your time taking part in company program, was that actually you're one of the companies that continued to trade after your company program experience finished. So what made you do that, and kind of what change did you make from how you run Idiom through your company program to what that then became, after your time in company program?
And it was a really interesting transition, because we'd gone from having being part of a school network and doing lots of different things, and we probably did an awful lot in the community, but and then becoming this the big boy company. When we became a limited company, and not everybody came with us. We reduced the team down to 5. And it sort of, we transitioned a little bit into consultancy. So we still had our books. We released a second book, Ben the Belty, just at the sort of end of the program, and then that, we were really lucky again, took off and sold quite well, and that drove all of our sales forward. We then branched out into consultancy, which was what I really enjoyed. We went and we worked with tourism and hospitality businesses, really advising them on how they should be supporting and marketing towards younger people. So that was something that was really good for us. And it was just about working with people, right across from Feast and Galloway. So it was something a bit different.
What I really like about how you approached and how your business approached it was really taking inspiration from the region that you were taking part in. I know you're proudly from Feast and Galloway, and still heavily involved in a lot of activities down there. Even though you've moved up to the kind of the central belt. But do you think that taking inspiration from your local area was important when you decided to come up with the product?
Absolutely, it's important, because we're there. You can see it, you live it, you breathe it. I think people buy into local. Feast and Galloway, as people really do buy into that local idea, and it's important to them. It is important that the stuff that's round about them, they can touch, they can feel it, and being able to champion that was something that we were really passionate about.
And would you recommend that taking your business on past company program? How did you find that experience? If you were to do it all over again, is it something you would do, or?
Yeah, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. The challenges are probably the same. There's probably more of a responsibility. I think for us, COVID, everybody blames COVID, but COVID, we specialised in tourism and hospitality, which didn't really go very well. But I think we did everything that we could. We got stuff wrong, and I think that's probably most important. Is we got stuff wrong, but I wouldn't change it.
And getting stuff wrong is a topic I often like to talk about on these webinars, because I think it's actually really important that people can be open and really honest about that. So I wonder if you're comfortable sharing maybe what some of those challenges were, and how you and your team kind of overcame them, and really what lessons there are for those people who are sitting out there listening in today to kind of learn from.
I think the first one for us was probably, believe it or not, paper is not waterproof. And I do remember one not particularly warm December morning when we were setting up a stall at a market to sell some of our books, and it started to rain, and the cardboard hadn't protected the books from the water, and we had some interesting shaped books.
You'll not get that wrong again.
Yeah, we'll never do that again. And I think the second one was probably after we transitioned. We became a limited company, and we probably cut too deep in the people that we took. We realised quite quickly that there was a skill set in the business that we didn't have. And we went out and we sorted that, and we brought somebody else back in, and that was fantastic. But having made that change, it's recognising that actually where has the skill set gone, and sort of having to backtrack a little bit.
And I think that's a really mature understanding, to realise that actually to be able to turn that back around and say, actually, we did something, wrong, as you say, we cut too deep into personnel. But it's a good point, I think, for a lot of the people who are out there. When you're talking earlier, obviously it's a huge part of your business, because understanding who your team are and you obviously grew quite significantly through your company program, and then cut quite significantly back again. Did you find that you got a better understanding throughout the process of your own skill set and what you were able to do?
Yeah, I think for me, the best skill that I learned during the company program was delegation. Because I must confess I wasn't very good at it. And it wasn't my strong suit. But it became apparent really quickly that actually that was what we needed. And that, for me, from a skill set, was probably the biggest takeaway.
Yeah, I can certainly relate. I had the same issue as managing director of my young enterprise company back in 2014. Delegation, a key skill actually, and something that is really hard to teach until you get the opportunity to really practice it in person. I think that's what's so great about company program, giving young leaders and particularly managing directors or people that, because of the company structure, are leading departments of people, whether that be marketing or operations or sales, the chance to say that you can actually just take a moment, pass out the work, and use people's skills to the best of their ability.
Okay, and it's only from getting it wrong that you learn that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wonder if I can talk to you now about what is life post Idiom. Because you've obviously closed down that business now after since COVID. So what's been up in the life of Lyle since then?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I probably, I do a lot. There's lots going on. So I've sort of the day job. I work in sort of a pharmaceutical and tech company. I was really lucky to join the Young Enterprise Board just at the end of last year, which was really good. I sort of do some advisory work for Young Scot as well. And just really getting involved in what's going on now that I'm up in the Central Belt.
Yeah, very busy for sure. So I wonder your role then with the trustees here at Young Enterprise Scotland. And that's obviously a brand new appointment. So congratulations on that. It's yourself and Lara. It's nice to see one from the boards and one from the Vista Gallery being represented of our alumni board on the main board of trustees. Why did you decide to apply for that role?
I think for me, it's about, I really believe in the vision that Young Enterprise has. There are so many powerful things that as a charity, as an organisation, Young Enterprise are best positioned to deliver. And I think it's now at the point where, younger people coming in and to drive that into the future with, the likes of Lara and I working with Bill and the longer standing people about how we grow and how we deliver that.
Yeah. Absolutely. And what's your goal for what do you want to achieve as in your time as a trustee of Young Enterprise Scotland? If you can answer that, that's possibly a hard question to.
That's a hard question because it's such a well-oiled machine. People at Young Enterprise Scotland, they know exactly what they're doing. And I think for me, it's about supporting the likes of you, Fraser, the likes of Jeff, and everybody else in the organisation to deliver what they think's right, and really growing that.
And it's great to see a comment from Andrew there coming through from LinkedIn that really is case in point about young people taking part in company program, brings those skills that are not taught, so that you as a young person going into the world of work and running your own business, that you've been extremely successful in that. And while Andrew's named on the screen, I can nice transition into your time as a judge for the national competition last year. How did you find that, actually being on the other end, just alongside your fellow judge Andrew and the rest of the team, meeting with our national finalists?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was so nice to hear the stories from people right across Scotland, to hear of the challenges. It was one of the first years that they'd had to run their business through COVID, and hearing the challenges that they've had and actually relating to it, because they were the same challenges that you have in your day-to-day job. I really enjoyed meeting the people that have taken part. Really interesting to hear their stories as well.
And as our young people that are on the programme are preparing for their company programme regional finals in just a couple of weeks' time, really submissions, what advice can you give as somebody who's been on the other side of the judging panel to those people who are preparing those submissions and preparing for interviews, preparing the reports and presentations?
I think the best piece of advice is to tell your own story. It's, you yourself as someone that's taken part in the program knows exactly what you've gone through. Talk about what went wrong, because in business that things don't always go right. I think for me the company program is more about what you learn from it. It's about what do you take away and how does that translate to what you want to do in life.
Yeah, it's that honesty, isn't it? Just really what you're saying there. Just I love that. Tell your own story, because it's so true. Everybody's company program experience is different. And it's always great for me. I have the real pleasure of being able to read all of the reports that get submitted across all of the regions. And I know, when it gets to the Scottish final stage, that we've course got the 17 that are representing their regions at the Scottish final. But every single one has had a very different story, and that's what I like about your story, Lyle, as well. From your time on Idiom, I remember vividly your interview and presentations that you gave to the panel all the way back in 2019, which honestly seems like a lifetime ago. When we last saw you with your team there, an extremely confident group of young people.
Yeah, and actually, the finals are really hard to judge. They're really difficult because everybody's tried incredibly hard. Everybody has put so much into it, and everybody's done it differently, and that's what I love. Is everybody does something slightly different.
So if I was to ask you now for your time on company program, your time running Idiom after company program time taken it, and your time in work and everything that you've kind of done since then, do you have any pieces of advice or golden nuggets that you feel able to kind of impart with our listeners here today? For those who are thinking, what's next? Because you only left school 3 years ago now, so really not that long at all ago. But and 2 years in a global pandemic during that time. So actually, what you've achieved is even more impressive, despite all of those kind of restrictions and barriers. So what kind of advice would you give for people sitting out there thinking, I'm not really sure what this next step is in your own experience?
Exactly. I think for me, I come back to it a lot. I was absolutely adamant that I was going to university. I was absolutely, extremely tunnel visioned. I was going to university and that was it. And then I sort of came to the realization that actually I didn't know what I wanted to study. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was only going because probably I had relatively good grades and probably my teachers were encouraging it, but there was no real reason for me to do it. So I went and I looked for employment where I thought I would learn more. And actually, for me, I've been incredibly lucky. I've learned loads from what I've done. And I think in terms of advice, it's about the people you put around about you. You need to have people that allow you to fail, because there's nothing worse than someone telling you not to do something and then not telling you why and not letting you get it wrong. The biggest lessons you learn are by getting it wrong and making sure you've got the right people around about you that can support you through that. But equally, that you're supporting them through that is absolutely key.
No, I think that's a great piece of advice to kind of finish on. Make sure you are building your network around you. I know you're an avid user of all the networking platforms, so feel free to go and find Lyle on LinkedIn. He's for some great content. But it's really important, isn't it, to make sure you've got those people around you, people you can lean on, people you can ask for advice for, and that's what I love about this alumni network as well. And I'm so grateful for you and your time for being involved in the alumni board and getting things set up. And I know we've got some very exciting plans laid out for 2022, the 30th anniversary year of Young Enterprise Scotland. And I know you'll be hearing all from Lyle and I and the rest of the board in just a few weeks' time, hopefully, being able to announce some more exciting plans. So Lyle, honestly, thank you so much for your time. I can't believe that's our 20-minute window just flown by, and it was so great to hear your story and really truly inspirational to see what you've achieved in such a short space of time on your company program journey, and since then, with running Idiom and everything that you're up to now, and obviously very passionate about the charity itself, been such a great volunteer. So from all of us at Young Enterprise, I guess a big thank you to you, and on behalf of the alumni board, thanks for taking part in our an audience with an alumni series. It's been great to have you.
Perfect. Thanks very much.
And so for all of you who are listening out there, we will be back in February with our next instalment of An Audience with our alumni. Please do check out our socials for find out a little bit more about who's up next in another wonderful story for this, our 30th anniversary year. So we hope to see you then. Once again, Lyle, thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you all at the next one. Thank you. See you later.